Hi, business creators. It's Claire from Claire Wright, and today we're going to be talking about how you can make your bookkeeping easier, less painful, less difficult. So, can you guess the three main complaints by now? Because that's what we've covered in the last three videos. It's dull, it takes ages, and it's painful. So, today, as I said, we're going to look at how you can make it easier. And in the last two videos, we covered off how you can make it faster and how you can make it more interesting. Now, there are a lot of things involved in bookkeeping, financial management, taxes, accounting, so many that we have multiple names for basically the same things. But the amount that most business owners actually need to manage is pretty minimal, especially if you're working with a finance professional like a tax accountant. So a lot of the transactions that you actually need to deal with are the same week in, week out. And then you work with that professional for the other pieces that are outside your kind of day to day. So the tax things, the deductions, those sort of things, you work with a tax accountant for. So I think most people find bookkeeping painful because it can be overwhelming, because there's so many things involved. It seems like a huge amount of things to learn and deal with, and heaps of options and heaps of menus in the bookkeeping softwares, which causes confusion about how you do something, how you achieve a specific task. So let's look at 3 tips on how you can make your bookkeeping easier. The first one, this is probably one you've heard me share before, is to master one thing at a time. Your bookkeeping does not need to be perfect overnight unless you've left it to the day before your tax deadline. Bookkeeping can be that work in progress, and it always will be a work in progress because it's never finished. There are always more transactions unless you're going to close your business. So as long as you're making progress, that overwhelm is going to start to lessen. So what we do is we start by learning how to do one thing really well. We master that one thing. And choosing that one thing to start with doesn't need to be complicated. You don't need a whole analysis on what's the one thing I should start with. Pick the one thing that you either do the most or the one thing that causes you the most drama. And that's kind of the eat the frog or the gain momentum mentalities. Master that thing and then move on to the next thing. The next thing you do most often or the next thing that causes you the most drama. If you want to do a little bit of planning, take 2 minutes, write down the things you need to master, pick one, and then get started. So tip number 2 on how you can make it easier or less painful specifically is to change what you can. This way you can start to make it more enjoyable for you. If you simply cannot bear to look at that software or that spreadsheet again, and that is stopping you from doing your bookkeeping, then change it. There's also a little bit of wiggle room in most platforms or softwares around how you achieve a particular outcome, how you record a particular transaction. There's often actually 2 ways to do things, but a different software, a different way may suit you and your business better. So if you are using one of the big bookkeeping programs or one of the smaller bookkeeping programs and it's not working for your business, go and find out what other options are out there. Also, when we make changes, we can also look at how we can change it to be more useful and relevant to your business, because that's the point, isn't it? We can start to use some of the outputs, because a lot of the focus on bookkeeping really is on the inputs, entering transactions, categorizing them, reconciling. That's all inputs, but the actual really useful information is in the outputs. The outputs are where you find out how business is going. Now, I know it can be really scary to face that reality, especially if it isn't going well. But how are you going to make improvements? If it's not working, you need to know what's not working. If it is working, you need to know what is working so you can do more of that. And to be honest, that's the job of the business owner, which is you, to face the reality of your business performance. So a little bit of tough love for you there before we move on to tip number 3 on how you can make it easier. And this again is something I say a lot. Start small. As we mentioned in step 1, it doesn't need to be perfect overnight. So let's say 12 minutes every day over a week, that's an hour. Is it easier for you to allocate 12 minutes a day or an hour a week? Now, there's no right answer here. It's based on your schedule. But I will say when you start tiny, like 12 minutes or even 5 minutes, it doesn't feel overwhelming. You can totally face 12 minutes worth of bookkeeping. That'll be over before you know it. And I'm going to say you could probably also face an hour of bookkeeping once a week because that time really will fly. Once you get in and you start doing those transactions and you start dealing with things, the hour will pass. What I find most people can't face is the thought of this open-ended time frame that it's going to take forever, that you're going to spend days and days doing this, because clearly that is overwhelming. But can you do this for an hour? I'm going to guess that you can. Now, when it comes to the barrier around getting started, there really is only one solution: get started. So you can make that easy by just doing small amounts of the things you already know how to do. So if you know how to categorize your income from a particular channel, like PayPal, then go ahead and tackle that income from PayPal. Soon you'll have that ticked off, and then there's less to catch up on. There's less overwhelming. Then you guess what? You move on to the next thing you already know how to do, because I'm going to suggest there are things you already know how to do. Do those things, rinse and repeat. That list of things you need to catch up on is totally going to be reduced in no time at all. So tip number 3, at some point you actually just have to get started. So there are lots of ways that you can make bookkeeping feel more painful than it is. You can try doing it all at once with the all or nothing approach and not stopping until it's done. You can punish yourself for making a mistake. Not necessary. You are going to make mistakes, and I talked about this recently. You can expect it to be perfect and 100% accurate. And I'm going to tell you that's probably not likely either, so you may as well let that one go. We're looking for reasonable, we're looking for the significant things reflected, and we're not looking for huge variances, obviously. You can probably also make it painful by trying to become a bookkeeper and know all the answers. Like, this is unrealistic for you unless you're a bookkeeper. So what's your favorite way to make it feel more painful, and how can you start to change that so it feels easier? If this video has been useful, I'd love you to give me a thumbs up or comment and let me know how you're going to try making your bookkeeping easier. And you can also subscribe to receive more content like this on making business finance and bookkeeping quicker, easier, and actually work for your business.